Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't think about making this video sooner. Yes, I definitely have supplies that I recommend and tips that I wish I'd known. What I will say is that my recovery for my myomectomy was like the worst thing I've ever endured. It was so painful. Every time I coughed, it was excruciating pain. If I sneezed, every time I got hiccups were the worst because you can't control like the pulsating. It was just like, it was horrible. So my first recommendation is take the painkillers. My husband and I were, for some reason, afraid that I would get addicted to the painkillers because they're very strong opioids. In hindsight, I wish I'd taken them like exactly as prescribed because I think that would have made my recovery significantly easier, and I know I wouldn't have gotten addicted. Like, I was in genuine pain. It would have helped me so much. Next is you're gonna wanna make sure that you get some kind of pillow to prop yourself up. If your recovery was anything like mine, like I don't know if mine was a normal myomectomy recovery for like the C-section style of myomectomy or not, but I could not sleep lying down for the first like week and a half to 2 weeks. It was so painful. Anything using my abs, like lying down, sitting up, I couldn't do. I had originally bought a pregnancy pillow to help with this, and that was the wrong thing to buy just because pregnancy pillows tend to be flat. I wish I'd bought like a wedge pillow. I think that would have made a massive difference because every night I was having to basically like build a little fort behind myself, or I say I was doing this, my mom was doing this, and my husband was trying to do this, but honestly my mom was much better at it than my husband. But we'd build like a little fort around my back so I could like sit up while I slept. A wedge pillow would have massively helped. Next is loose clothing. So make sure that you have a lot of like flowy night dresses. That's what I used. My husband hated them because they were so ugly, but they were so comfortable. Anything that you can like spend days in that's not going to be tied around your belly or tied around any part of your body. You really just want that like looseness and freedom when you're recovering. Number 4 and 5, extra long chargers and extension cords. This is important because when you're sat on the sofa, which is where you're going to be spending most of your time for the next like 2 weeks if your recovery is anything like me, you want to make sure that your phone is charged and that you have access to all the apps, all the distraction, all the fun, all the communication, like everything that you want to have. You don't want to be sat on the couch with your phone dying while, you know, you're not able to really get up and do anything. I'd also highly recommend bringing extension cords to the hospital with you because this was a tip someone else gave me who has experience with hospitals, and she's been to quite a few, unfortunately, but she has some great advice over it. And her tip to me was bring extension cords because no matter what the room layout is, you can always make sure that your phone is charged. So that's a tip that I took with me when I had my son, and I wish I'd had it when I had my myomectomy. Not really necessarily a recovery tip, but just like something to make it a little bit more bearable. My next tip is to make sure that you have help. My mom came and lived with me for like a month after my surgery, and for the first like week to 2 weeks, she was doing everything for me. All my meals were being cooked by her, like every single thing she was doing. And if she hadn't been doing that, I don't know what I would have done. She helped bathe me every night. Like I could not move. It was probably the closest experience to being like an elderly person, or like what I imagine that experience must be like, where you can't do anything for yourself. So my mom was like bathing me, she was making me food. Try and have as much help as you can. And I say this with so much love, like men are amazing, but some men are not necessarily as good at those type of things as maybe your mom or your sister might be, for example. So just think about who you want to have in that role and who's going to be best placed to really help you, because as much as we want to like not make anyone feel bad, ultimately you're going, if your recovery is anything like mine, you're going to be in a lot of pain. And so making sure that you have someone to hand who can really help you is super important. By the way, if I'm bouncing because my son is here, so apologies that this might look a bit funny on the video. The next thing that I didn't get, but in hindsight, if I had my time again, I definitely would have at least investigated, because I think you can get this for like 30, 35 bucks, would be toilet rails. The reason being that every time I had to go to the toilet, to sit down and stand up was excruciating, because again, you don't realize how much you use your abs for things like that. So just having like bars on the side, if I'd installed that before my surgery, I could have used more of my upper strength, maybe a little bit, maybe at day like 3 or 4, to lower myself down, and it would have been less painful. And I would have maybe not needed as much help. Like every time I went to the bathroom, from memory, I think my mom had to hold my arms and like lower me down. So yeah, just an idea. My next note is a tip, which is walk as soon as you can. They tell you to do this and you should definitely do it. I think the first 2 days I couldn't walk at all, but day 3 I walked maybe like for a minute or 2 minutes, and I would just like walk around my apartment to begin with. It was very painful, and it was like kind of crouched over like walking, but over the next kind of week or 2 weeks I was able to straighten my torso and walk a little bit more normally. It definitely wasn't comfortable, but apparently it's what you need to do for recovery. And what I will say is that when I then had my son, I was advised after my C-section to walk as soon as possible, and I walked like within a few hours following my C-section. I think my recovery from my C-section was so good and easy because my myomectomy recovery was so tough. But yeah, I had a great recovery from my C-section walking as soon as I could. Same goes for myomectomy. My next tip is around fiber. Make sure that you're having fiber drinks to hand, like fiber gel, for example. Like, make sure you're drinking that 2 or 3 times a day. I would actually recommend starting this before you go in for your surgery. So if your surgery is in like a week, maybe start from now. The idea is you want it to be as easy as possible to go to the bathroom, because if you have to do any straining, surprise, surprise, it's going to be very, very painful. So making sure that you have that kind of in your system and like ticked off, so you're not having to think too much about like your diet. Of course, have a good diet, like do all that jazz. But if in doubt, even if not in doubt, I would recommend have those fiber drinks just to like get everything flowing. Next, I don't know if this is true or not, but pineapple. So in my recovery, my mom made me pineapple juice fresh every single day. Apparently it's an anti-inflammatory and it's meant to help with healing. Again, I don't know if this is an old wives' tale or if it's backed by science, but I did it anyway and it seemed to work, I think. Who knows? My recovery was still really tough, but I don't know. I did it and I would do it again. And last, we've already touched on this. When I went through my recovery, I was using like regular underwear with like a maxi pad, which in hindsight, I really wish I hadn't done, because it ended up being a massive pain every time I went to the bathroom. The pad might move position and then pulling it up was really hard. So if I had my time again, I would get those postpartum diapers that are for women who've just given birth and are bleeding heavily. Those are so much easier. You can just dump them when you're done. But yeah, I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions. Good luck with your myomectomy. I know that it's so scary, but like, I can say for myself that it's made a massive positive improvement on the quality of my life. Like, it was such a difficult recovery, but I don't regret it at all. And I would 100% say that if you were in a similar boat to me, where like I couldn't exercise because my hemoglobin was low, I was constantly needing like blood infusions and or blood transfusions, I should say, and iron drips. All of that is like out the window now. I have great stamina when I exercise. Like, again, my periods are more like, I couldn't leave the house for like 1 or 2 days a month because my periods were so heavy. Now my periods are much more manageable. So yeah, overall, I promise you, like, it's scary. The hardest part, I think before you have the surgery, for me, it was the anxiety of the surgery that was hard. And then following the surgery, it was the recovery was tough for the first week or two. And then, but after that, you know, it's totally worth it. And the good thing about the recovery is that while it's painful, the scariness is kind of gone. So you're just dealing with a little bit of pain, which again, if you take your painkillers, which I was not doing, you'll be fine. And if you live somewhere like in the States and you're still in pain with the amount of painkillers they're giving you, they would probably increase your dosage, because this is kind of an intense surgery to go through. But yeah, I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'm rooting for you. Good luck.